It's Tuesday morning, AD 33, the last week of Jesus' earthly life. And he gets up and he goes back into Jerusalem. He goes back to the temple where he was just the day prior, turning over tables and emptying money bags and accusing people of being a den of robbers, using the temple for their own benefit. So it's Tuesday morning, and I'm actually making this little video, this little reflection in my daughter's playhouse right now, because there has to be this sense of imagination as we walk through this week. There has to be this sense of exploring and feeling what Jesus is going through on behalf of those he came to serve, on behalf of those he came to be a sacrifice for, as we look forward to Friday. So Jesus, he has come on Tuesday back into the temple, and this is the day where he gets constant confrontation from the Jewish leadership, from the scribes, the Pharisees, from the principled men. These are folks coming to him with these questions, and these questions that we see are questions that are baited questions, meaning they're trying to trick him. They're almost like the impossible questions, like, could God create a rock bigger than he could carry? Right? There's these questions to corner someone. But guess what? What we see is amazing. Jesus answers their questions flawlessly. He actually gives answers to them where their jaws are dropped and they're marveling at it. Some of the questions they ask is, where does he get such authority? Or who to give taxes to? Or if someone dies and they marry again, who are they married to in heaven? Or which is the greatest commandment in the law? Or what do they think about the Christ? And it's that final question that really stirs Jesus to get into these 7 woes we see in the Matthew narrative, where he goes after these hypocrites over and over and over again. These hypocritical people who are saying one thing and living a different way. Oh man, hypocrites get under my skin. It's those who know a lot and know what to do but don't do it, right? This is the hypocrites that Jesus has come to say, woe to you. It's also the day where, with these confrontations, he actually retreats back to the Mount of Olives. He actually comes back after a long day of being confronted. And this is kind of, I think, one of the reasons he retreats is because in Mark 14, verse 1, we see that the chief priests and scribes were seeking to arrest Jesus, but look what it also says in Mark 14, verse 1. They were seeking to arrest him by stealth and to kill him. The Jewish leadership has moved beyond an anger at Jesus or questioning Jesus or confrontation of Jesus, and they moved to a full-on hatred, a full-on planning, a stealthful, sneaky fox type planning to kill him. And this is the last day Jesus, before his death and resurrection, speaks in the temple. This is the last day he teaches there. So, man, what a day of confrontation. Jesus then retreats into the Mount of Olives, and this is where he gives what we call the Olivet Discourse, the time where he sits with his disciples privately, and he shares with them kind of these commissions or signs to watch for. Hey, there's going to be end times. There's going to be signs and wonders coming. There's going to be judgment. There's going to be a second coming of Christ. And it really pivots from being a very Jewish type Messiah that's promised to a nation's promise. Because Jesus says that the good news goes to all nations. That this good news is to be for all peoples. Because the gospel, meaning good news, is meant not just to be contained for a certain people group. The gospel is opened up to anyone who would receive this Messiah. And this is a big threat to the Jewish leadership. This is a big slap in their face, the fact that Jesus started teaching this. Because what they wanted was control. And they were kind of in tandem with the view from the Roman government, where the Roman government said to the Jewish leadership, you can stay in leadership as long as you keep order. So there's kind of this dual relationship. They're kind of, you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back, with the Jewish leadership and the Roman Empire in Rome. And if you can get more benefit out of it, that's the goal. They had no regard for God. And so it is in this climate where it heightens, and Jesus goes back to the Olivet Discourse to share with his disciples hope, things to watch for, more tribulation to come, but the promises that Jesus, after he dies, will return. Imagine a time sitting down privately with Jesus where he tells you the last things he wants you to know before he dies. Imagine that. Imagine sitting with him and saying, Jesus, tell me more. Jesus, I want to know more. Well, I think it would have been an amazing time to see Jesus, to walk through that. But he gives us this amazing promise, Jesus does, after he rises and before he goes back to heaven. He says, behold, I am with you always unto the end of the age. So this Tuesday, kind of one of the last days that the disciples start to ponder these things and hear his teaching for the last time, at least in the temple. And they think, man, if Jesus is really means what he's saying, that he will die, they're going to miss him. And so they're starting to sense that. So we got to start imagining that too as we walk through this week. And there's a really dark part to the final part of Tuesday. The final part of Tuesday, I imagine it's in the evening, I don't know why, but Judas Iscariot goes out to the Sanhedrin, right, this council, and he starts to make a deal to betray Jesus. He starts to exchange money, right? That's what Jesus came, clearing the temple, kind of confronting that people are loving their money more than they're loving the Lord. And that's what Judas is doing. So tonight is a pretty dark night with the betrayal starting. And eventually the disciples all will turn their back on Jesus. It's a dark night for Jesus. So let's feel this. Let's imagine this as we walk through Holy Week, as we get a sense for what Jesus went through with confrontation and then also with his teaching.